Joining us now is former U.S. Ambassador to Canada, David Cohen. Mr. Cohen, sir, welcome. Thank you for being here. How do you think this most recent ruling will impact trade negotiations with Canada?
So I think your setup story got this exactly right, and I haven't heard a lot of Canadian news on this, but right now this is much ado about nothing. It's not all that important to Canada. You have to remember that it's only, although it is most of the tariffs by dollar value, in terms of the tariffs impacted by the decision, it's easier to speak about this in plain English. It's the across-the-board national tariffs that were imposed under the IEEPA that were struck down by this court. The tariffs that are of most interest and importance to Canada, that is steel tariffs, aluminum tariffs, automobile tariffs, were not impacted at all by this decision. And while the 35% so-called reciprocal tariff imposed on Canada is impacted by this ruling, remember that there is a broad exemption for CUSMA compliant goods and services under that decision, and about 90% of the trade takes place under CUSMA, so that the effective rate, if you will, of that 35% tariff on Canada is something less than 8%, which is what's caused Prime Minister Carney to say that overall Canada has one of the most favorable tariff deals of any country in the world, and he's right about that. So the implications of this court decision directly on Canada are not significant. But I do think that Minister LeBlanc's line, which has been Prime Minister Carney's approach, which is to take this opportunity to try and engage in negotiations, one of the lessons that Canada should have learned, which I think they understood all along, is that negotiations over CUSMA and USMCA and an extension of that are going to be the most important part of these trade and security negotiations with the United States. And so the continued engagement by Prime Minister Carney, by Minister LeBlanc, in negotiating all of these issues with Washington is exactly appropriate.
Now, looking more broadly at the trade relationship between both countries, Trump has now ended the de minimis exemption impacting businesses right across Canada. What kind of impact could that have on the trade relationship?
Well, he ended it not just for Canada, he ended it globally. And I think the biggest impact is not going to be on Canada. The biggest impact is going to be on American consumers who will lose the benefit of that exemption, and it will accelerate the increases in prices that American consumers are paying as a result of Prime Minister Trudeau's, as a result of President Trump's tariff policies. I don't think the de minimis exemption itself has that large an impact on Canadian trade, although I've not seen analysis of that. I will say that notwithstanding all of this noise, trade between the United States and Canada remains incredibly robust. I think when the numbers are done, we will see that that the United States will remain Canada's largest trading partner, and Canada will remain the United States' largest trading partner, and that the U.S.-Canada bilateral trade relationship, if it's not the largest in the world, will be one of the 2 or 3 largest trade relationships in the world. And that goes to one of the points I try to continue to make, which is that trade does not take place between governments. Trade takes place between businesses. It regards businesses selling to consumers, and tariffs will have an implication on that by driving up the cost that consumers pay, but it does not eliminate the trade. And so I think the trade relationship between the United States and Canada remains challenged, but it remains very significant.
Okay, thank you for your time, Mr. Cohen. David Cohen is a former U.S. ambassador to Canada.